Okay, let's take a look at a student boot camp. So what I used to do is I used to write down all my to-dos, and then what I realized is that more often than not, I would repeat things to do. So what I called was boot camp. So in the top section, what you're going to do is you're going to write down your to-dos. And then as you start to rewrite to-dos more often, you're going to start to write them down. These are the boot camp items. So I'm going to go through them very fast. So let's start on the left. General. Be prepared. Make your lunch the night before. Pack your bag the night before. Make sure you know what you're wearing the night before. Whichever. Little things that allow you to be more prepared. Go slower. Be more careful. If you're stuck, draw and label a diagram. Write down the given information. Go down the page. Always substitute with brackets when you're performing substitution. When you're working on two equations, make sure you put them side by side. If you're ever working off to the right, if you ever do any elementary work, do it off to the right, then bring it back into the question. Wherever you can, write down your English sentences. More often than not, the actual number of things that you do in math are very limited. People get overwhelmed because there's so many different combinations of all the different things that you can do in different orders. By writing down English sentences off to the right and on separate English sentence sheets, you'll start to understand and simplify the different methods that you do and better memorize them. Highlighted in yellow, the most important thing, check your answer, not sometimes, not when your teacher asks you to, all the time. Do the reverse. Try it again. Try the reverse operation to see if you can figure out the answer a different way. Rewrite the question and try it again, not looking at the old way. You might have more accurately solved it. Then look at both and decide which one is more correct. Make up questions. I can't stress this enough. Make up questions, make up questions, make up questions. This will teach you the best way to figure out how to do things. You will make up a question and it might not work. What that teaches you to do is what doesn't work. It'll also teach you the confidence to be able to make up questions on your own, practice on your own without saying stuff like the teacher didn't give me any questions. Further down, always have a calculator. Use pencil. Bring a highlighter and highlight stuff. It's going to be way easier to see stuff, important stuff on the page. Make review sheets like mine. Sometimes I provide you with a chapter review sheet if it deems necessary, and yearly review sheets like methods and remembers. Make up questions, that's written again, sorry. Teacher's office hours. Find out what time your teacher has office hours. Go and see them before class, at lunch. They want to hang out with their friends just as much as you do. They want to show you rewards for coming to see them. They're going to shy you away from questions that aren't as important and lean you towards questions that are more important, whereby eliminating literally half of the stuff that you need to study. Apply it to daily life. Every single time you learn a new math concept in class, make sure that somehow you can apply it to daily life. If I just learn the formula, speed equals distance over time, and I'm driving 20 kilometers at 100 kilometers an hour, try and figure out how long it's going to take. Then reverse the process and give yourself another variable. Then talk about it with a friend. Try and use your hands and your arms as much as possible, like over equals over, or something equals something. Anytime you can bring muscle memory into questions, point to the page, point to where you're looking, etc. Okay, things to do daily. Recite and think about what you've learned. If you're on the bus or getting driven somewhere or before you go to sleep, try and recite, meaning left brain and right brain, way more helping you to remember how to do things in the long run. Then filling in the gaps better of what you don't know. 5 minutes of math on paper. All the time. Sketch a little cube. Draw a fun little cube. Make up a little equation. Teach something what you learned. Tell someone what you learned. Be amazed at how much you're going to learn better by teaching someone what you learned. You may think that they're not as smart as you are and that you're not gaining by teaching them, but absolutely are. You're gaining because it's allowing you to better understand how much you know the material. They're learning because you're helping them with the material. Both people win. Apply it to daily life. I've said that one already. Study with classmates. Study with classmates. Get these practices going now. In university and work life, you're so much more often put into groups where you're forced to deal with different people. It's going to be way easier if you learn early in life how to figure out working with groups, getting a little idiosyncrasies out of the way, and better figuring out ways that work and ways that don't work. Down below, questions. Look at things differently. Think, what do I do know? Write that down. How do I know that? How did I figure that out? List what you know. List what you don't know. Think, what could I do? And do it. Then do it differently. Figure out which one's correct. Down below, homework. Make notes on notes. So at the end of a chapter, when you have 10 pages of notes, simplify those notes into a couple different pages. Reinforcing a study habit by rewriting what you already know and simplifying it onto a much simpler piece of paper. What the astronauts do is they have a single sheet of paper with all the big things that could go wrong, just as a little review and a few little keynotes as to what to do if those things go wrong, just like studying for a test. Make sure that you have your binder open to your notes with your homework out of the page. You need to flip through your notes to see how you did different questions in order to do your homework. Do your homework. Do the parts that you can and then leave some space and then go back and do them later. Redo homework. Do extra questions. So often people say, my teacher didn't give me any homework. When I was 9 years old in grade 5, when my teacher didn't tell me she didn't have any more homework for me to do, I didn't give up. I went and asked teachers different questions. I asked different teachers down the hall for more homework. And they had it. This was before the internet. You literally have a million different options of how to find more homework. Make a table of contents. List the types of questions that you're going to see on the test. Make a checklist. Am I good at this? Am I not good at that? Don't erase your work. Start getting more comfortable not erasing your work, but crossing it out and redoing it. So often it's more important the problems in your work than the actual work itself, because you want to be able to very quickly scan 10 pages of notes and quickly see what you did wrong and what the problems are, more quickly allowing you to figure out what to do, what to use your time on, better efficiently using your time, especially when you start to get higher level courses. Okay, down below, troubleshooting. First things first, make sure that you copied the question down correctly. Check with your calculator. Check each option. Check each operation. Check with a friend. Ask a teacher. Ask a family member. Look at the question differently. Type it in the internet. Figure out a different way to answer your question. See if you did it correctly. Then the teacher didn't give me the answers. Okay, miscellaneous. Explain it to a 10-year-old. Now, I don't mean if you're 13 and you're doing 13-year-old math, explain what you're doing to a 10-year-old. Try to simplify the process so you can explain it to a 10-year-old. Einstein says you don't understand what you're talking about unless you can explain it to your grandmother. Now, the point is not that your grandmother understands it, it's that you can explain it in a simple enough fashion. So if you're doing something like 2x plus 5, well, slow it down and explain it to a 10-year-old. So 2 times x means 2x means 2 times x. If x is 5, 2 times 5 is 10, then plus whatever is whatever. But slowing down and explaining it to someone younger than you. Next step, sum up your information off to the right and highlight it. So if you're working on a tricky step in an equation or something, do it off to the right where it's simple, then bring it back in. Then what you're going to start to realize is that your off to the right stuff is the stuff that you need to work on, and in the future you won't have to write that down as much and you can actually just start to do it in your head. Come up with a similar example. So when you're working with a hard example, try and figure out how you can break the problem apart into tiny little different parts so it's a similar example. Then solve the similar example, then try and use what you just learned to bring it into the harder example. I don't know. I don't know is a very valid thing to say. Don't just make up a law because you don't know what to do. Think, I don't know, and actually go get help or figure out how to do it correctly. But think, I don't know, and stop there. Don't guess. Maybe make a logical assumption, but don't guess. I don't know. Show more work. Write down more. Do a method sheet. Do a formula sheet. Do a remember sheet. All of these things, so important. Do more. Very helpful. Circle your answer. Double your circled answer if you've circled partial answers towards a final answer. Make sure that you answer the question. If it's a word problem, make sure that you actually write down the English sentence as to the answer of the question. So often people get to a final answer and then just get stuck, don't write the answer down, and then try and look back at their stuff later, and they can't figure out what they even did. Arbitrary numbers. Arbitrary numbers is a great method. Pick an arbitrary number, substitute it in, and figure out if it works. Point to where you look. When you're working on a page, and let's say, for example, the next point, don't pick up your calculator. If you're comfortable picking up your calculator, do it. But what happens is you pick up your calculator and then you look down at the question, forcing your eyes to look and change focus, which is actually very stressful for your brain. You wouldn't believe it. Then you have to look at where you were on the page and then look back to the calculator, refocus your eyes, remember what you looked at off to the right, or lay the calculator in front of your non-dominant hand. With your dominant hand, point to the spot on the page that you are looking. Then quickly look at the calculator, then quickly look back at where you're looking. Figure out what you're pointing to. Look back at the calculator, type that in, then look back at where you're pointing and move your pen a little bit to the right. Then look back at the calculator and type the next thing in. It's going to be a lot less dangerous, especially when things get difficult. The inventions of cell phones caused us to pick up these calculators, but we never picked up these calculators before the cell phone. Well, some people did, but they used to be gigantic. Okay, use graph paper and use the lines. Just use graph paper all the time. Why not? It's a little bit more expensive, but it's way better than lined paper. It allows you to write more neatly, better page layout, etc. Oh, there's don't guess again. Don't guess. Don't guess. Say, I don't know. Make up a theory. Test your theory side by side. If you get it wrong, don't erase it, cross it out, try it again. Practice using your calculator. Just randomly use it sometimes to get used to how things work. Test a feature. Test a feature in a different way. Make sure you check your equipment. Make sure that everything in your pencil case, your pencil sharpener, your click pens, you have extra equipment. Photocopy hand-ins. I actually never handed in an assignment without photocopying it. One time a teacher lost all of our stuff, and then everyone just got an average mark when mine was much better. And when I wanted to study for the test, they had lost it, so I didn't have it anymore. Next section, page layout. Always titling and dating and initial your pages, making it so much easier to find it in the future. Making sure you use very lazy titles. Notice for math I use M, and for the grade I just use the number. Then the chapter, and then a mini title. Then off to the right will be your initials and the date, much more easily allowing you to organize your notes in chronological order. Make sure you use clean notes. If you're doing very difficult questions, just use one side of the page. Then start to group your difficult questions together in like a hard pile study for the test. One question per type of page. If it's extra hard, just put those types of questions on that page. Then if you start a different type of question, start a new page and then go back to that old page when you're doing more of those types of questions, keeping your stuff together. New page if you're 2/3 of the way down. If you don't know how much space it's going to take you to do a question, Don't start at the bottom. Just start a fresh page. People think, oh, saving paper, jamming all this stuff into one page. Go read my book in chapter 12 about how it's counterintuitive to think that you'll use less paper by writing smaller and more awkwardly. New stuff at the back. This is very counterintuitive, or this is whichever. Some people put lazy new stuff at the front. If you like to do it that way, sure. But if you want to do higher levels of organization, it's going to be much easier to put new stuff at the back. If you're doing a question like 1A, put it as far left as possible. Don't put it right at the margin. You might need to do something to both sides of the equation, and that 1A might be in the way. Next section, formulas. Put your equal sign in the same spot working down the page. Don't use any half fractions, meaning using graph paper, and use your overs properly. Always write down formulas before you substitute into them, and be careful with your like terms. Next section, working on word problems. Make sure you start with your let statements, putting your equations side by side, carefully substituting and then solving. Ways to get ahead. Always go to your teacher's website before the class. Get ahead in the summer or whichever, over Christmas break. Ask them to post stuff before. Go and meet the teacher. Possibly read the textbook before class. Maybe just take the photos of questions at the back so you don't have to carry around the textbook. Print any material that you can. It's going to speed you up in class way quicker. Okay, ideals. Do stuff both ways. Have some ambition. Figure stuff out, want something in the future, and think about the steps that you're going to need to take to get there. Simplify. Stop complicating things so much. Have some passion. Love poetry. Practice. Philosophy. Determination. These are just ideals. Okay, for tests. Ask the teacher what's going to be on the test. Write down an outline of the test. What kind of format? What's the layout? What are the formulas we're going to get? Are we allowed a calculator? Can we have some graph paper or allow any spare paper? Study with classmates. Cheat sheets. Make up a cheat sheet for the test. Be calm and breathe. You'd be amazed how much being calm and breathing will help. What's next? Ask the teacher what's going to be next on the next section after the test, so you can get a little bit of a head start before the next section. And write down the questions after the test, the ones that you got wrong, so you can study with them, because usually they take the test back. Okay, top right, organization. Organize your binder nightly. Don't just keep jamming stuff into the front of the binder over and over again. Have an at-home binder with the identical dividers, and then take stuff out regularly and just keep a couple of review sheets of chapter reviews that you've made for each chapter, so at the end of the year the binder's not gigantic from a bunch of different courses. Make sure that you have a syllabus. Possibly use a binder reminder or any sort of a duotang to keep all your formulas in, or whichever. Make sure that you do two-handed flipping. When you're opening and closing the binder, that you use two hands, because if you use one hand, then paper breaks as the paper hits those little tiny little metal corners on the clasps. Okay, make sure that you think about your skills as a toolbox. Things that you can apply. Not what should I do, but what do I know how to do that I can apply. Don't forget about balance, remembering to look and have fun at math. What can I do? What should I do? But always think, what can I do? What have I been taught how to do? How can I apply them? Make sure you use some sort of a calendar. Make sure that you have your calculator and that it's charged and you know how to use it. Hopefully use a pencil case. Try and keep a pen, hopefully red, for marking stuff up. A large white eraser for big erasing. A ruler and a protractor to check all of your geometry and trigonometry. Possibly some sort of a USB stick in case you want to save large files when, for some reason, internet might be down, etc. Having a big black marker to really huge mark stuff, and whiteout. I like the white tape. Okay, continuing on the right. Calendars. Have a binder reminder or use some sort of a phone app or some sort of a paper calendar view or whichever. But make sure that the method that you use for your calendars and to-dos works and that you don't forget to do things, and try different things and go back and forth, because you'll want to find the benefits of each different type and use them. And when you're at university, you want to make sure that you're already very well versed in all of your different methods. So you don't need to be trying different organizational or reminder to do methods in university. You want to make sure that those are good before. Life. Remember, it's on you. Don't say stuff like the teacher didn't give it to me, or my sister or brother didn't, whichever. It's on you. Make sure that you look at problems like it's on you. When you start saying stuff like, I didn't go to the teacher's website, or I didn't, or I forgot, you're going to start to look at problems differently in the future and see better solutions. Because if you rely it's on you, then it's you who can get the solution, or you who can solve the problem without any additional help from the person who you think did not help you do that problem. Make sure you have a balance between life. Do sports. Have friends. Be in the chess club. Whichever. Have a balance. Don't just study all the time. Don't just do 8 hours of math. Do an hour of math, and then skip a day, and then do another hour of math. Skip a day, etc. Make sure that you're very healthy. Having a water bottle and a snack all the time, so often during a test or whichever, it's actually just a blood sugar or some sort of a issue with being hungry or thirsty. Make sure that you're exercising and getting enough rest, because so often rest is the most important thing studying for a test. Get motivated. Or find a motivator to help you figure out how you can find the ambition to do what you need to do today to get to where you want to get to in the future. So figure out what you want to do in the future, or what you don't want to do in the future, and what you're going to have to do today to get there and avoid some of the hurdles. Stay on top of things. Do little bits all the time. Anytime you have a little 5 or 10 minute break, just do a little bit of math or science or English. Be amazed at how much adding up these tiny little times. I used to do homework on the bus to school, a little bit at lunchtime, when I was whichever. Stay on top of things. Find something to do. Set goals. Get a mentor. Have idols. Make plans and follow through with them. Build the confidence. Set an example for someone else. Plant the seeds for your future. So, we already talked about office hours, teacher help, doing parts of questions, etc. And then possibly retests or test corrections or any makeup. Be nice to your teachers. Challenge them a little bit, but always remember that they're the ones who are going to be giving you the marks. Okay, so this was the student boot camp. Again, this is my list. I thoroughly encourage you to use this list, but also create your own. Write down to-dos, and then as they become happening over and over again, turn them into boot camp items. Items that happen again and again and again. Make sure you write down your to-dos and cross them off, either on paper or on your phone app or whichever. And the last thing we're talking about in the top right-hand corner is logic. Logic is going to be your best friend past all of these methods. Math is the simplest thing in the whole wide world. And it's just a matter of a million billion tiny little easy steps being put together in different orders. Some people think math is harder than English. It's easier for us to teach a monkey, bring me 3 bananas, than say banana. It's the fact that we use English all day, every day, that English seems simpler. Well, when I was a kid, all I did was math. And my friends and I did math together. So it turned out that for us, math was easier than English, because we just did it all the time. We thought all the time in that way. But logic. It's always going to be a matter of you don't have a mastery of a step from a previous grade, and now you have a gap in the future. Make sure that you have all of your previous foundations perfect, Then when you get to higher level stuff, there'll be less gaps and it will seem simpler. It's when you get to the higher level stuff and you have gaps, then you get overwhelmed, you get frustrated, etc. So remember, logic. It's always going to be, sure, a little bit of hard work, but a bunch of simple steps to get there. Possibly go back to previous grades and learn from these notes, homework, and video. And I wish you a great year.